Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. So what we're doing today is I'm going to show you how to do our next assignment with Threshold. And so here's a couple of samples. In Schoology, I've got all these instructions that you're going to follow. So you see, I'm just scrolling through this, and there's a couple steps that I want you to go through. Once I do the demo, it'll make a lot more sense because I think currently it might be a little bit overwhelming. Okay, so when we start this, here's what we start with. So I'm going to use this picture. I'm going to give you two options for this assignment in terms of pictures you're going to use. This is where I started with. Here's eventually what we're going to be creating. Something like this. Okay, or something like this. So you've got your own artistic freedom to create something of interest to you. So what I did is I took this first picture and then I flipped it because I want to be able to read Canon. Okay, so I've started with this. Now, when we go through these steps, the first thing that I want you to do is we're going to use the pen tool and make a selection, and we're going to end up deleting the background. So I'm going to go into my layers window. I'm going to grab this picture, and then what I want to do is use the pen tool. Where we go? Here we go. So what I'm going to start off with is just a selection. And so all we do is go through this, and we've used this before. It's probably been a while for you, so maybe you need a little bit of a refresher course. So what I'm doing is pressing the option key now, and as I press the option key, then I can change that handle a little bit. So go through these steps, and then as you get close to finishing, just make sure you close the path. And what I'm going to eventually do here is after I close the path, I'm going to delete the background. Okay, so I get to a point here and then go down to the end, make sure I close the path. So now I've closed it. Now what I need to do is how do I make it a selection? I have to right click on it. Hold on again here. Hold on, right click, hold it down, and then make selection. Okay, so now I've got that. My feather, I'm gonna go to 1. You know what, I'm gonna go to 0. So I don't want any fading involved in this. So now I go this. So now I've got this part selected. So what I want to do next is I'm going to go select, inverse, delete. And so I've got her deleted. So there, that part's gone. Okay. Next thing that I want to do after I use the pen tool, now I've got to go into threshold. So I'm going to go image, adjustments, and then threshold right here. And it's going to turn it black and white. Okay. So now I can test this any way I want to make it look a little bit better. So I've got that part taken care of. Next part, okay, so now I've got the threshold taken care of. I may have to select the white area and delete it to create an interesting area. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select the white area. Now, when I select the white area, make sure this box is unchecked. If it's checked, see how it only selects the parts that are connected? So uncheck that box. It's super important. And now I've got all of those selected. So I'm going to go Command cut and then paste. And so what I'm doing here is simply taking this piece. I don't want to delete it because I may end up using it later on. And so I'm going to find the spot that it should go. There we go. All right. So now on this layer, so now I've got the background selected. Change the background color, something that is of great contrast to the back. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to rename it background. Okay? And then I'm just going to paint this a color, paint bucket, figure out some little color to use. We'll try something like this. Alright, so we're going to paint that background. Alright, so we're going to start with that. Now, if I delete this, right, so now you've got something like this going on, which is kind of cool. Okay, but I'm going to leave that there for now. Next part, so I've already taken care of the background. Now I want to work on brushes. And so when I add these brushes in, I'm going to add some overlays, I'm going to add some splatters. So first of all, I'm going to go into my brushes. And so I've got all of these different types of brushes added. So for starters, I think I'm going to go into my splatter brushes. And so I've got a couple of these. What you may have to do is make it smaller. Okay, so I've got something like this. I've got another brush right here. So it's pretty big. So I'm going to go smaller. Okay, so I'm going to go about like this. Now, here's what's kind of fun. You can do a couple of things. So as I paint with this, let's start with black. As I paint, what I may end up doing, let's see here, I'm going to make a new layer just in case I screw up. I don't want to erase into this picture. So I'm making a new layer, and then we're going to call it splatter brushes. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my brushes here. What I can do is I'm going to rotate this a little bit. So I'm going to start here and then press the R key on a Mac, and then I can just do this. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to create more of a splatter. Now if I want to change it up a little bit, and then I'm pressing the keys just to the right of the letter P to make these pop out some more. So that's one option of how I can do this. Now if I want to add it over here, I can do that too. And then just continue to do this. Now press the R key again and then rotate, and I'm going to get it back to straight. There we go. So that's kind of a starting point. Now here's something that's super cool. So I'm going to go into my brush settings. Okay, I'm going to click on Shape Dynamic, and I'm going to click on this. So what I want to do is I want to be able to change this. So the size, I want to make that change. Angle jitter, I want to make that change. So watch what happens as I do this. Okay, so I'm going to click here, and this should rotate. Okay, so now I have another one that's larger, and I can make it a little bit smaller. Okay, see how it constantly is rotating? So every time that I do this, I'm getting a new effect thrown in there, which is super cool, which can be really beneficial. So I can get some new, different effects thrown in there with my brush. Okay, so now this is where I'm at so far. Okay, next what I want to do is I'm going to go back into my layer. So I've added my splatter brushes pretty nicely. Okay, the next part, next thing I want to do is I may end up merging these two together here. So if I hide this, so that's what I've got right now. Now I'm going to keep this white area because that's going to be important later on. So for these two, I'm going to right click and then I'm going to merge these layers. Okay, so now I've got that. Now here's the next thing I want to do. So I'm going to use some watercolor brushes. So let's see here. Here are my watercolors. And I'm not sure which ones I have. I don't really want a blood splatter. But here's what I can do. There we go. So I'm going to go and I'm going to change this. So let's make a new layer here. Okay, so I make a new layer and I'm going to call it watercolors. And now what I'm going to do is let's change this color to, let's go with some violets here. Okay, and so I'm going to go in here and just add some of these brushes in. And maybe I'm going to make them smaller. And I'm just going to paint over all of this. And I'm going to add some lighter colors in here. And so I'm painting over all of the areas that have black in them. Okay, so what's going to end up happening here is as I'm doing this, now I'm going to go back over this again, add some more violets in there. And you can do a lot more with your brushes. Like I've been pretty limited with what I've been doing with mine. Okay, so I might just go into here and then add a little bit more. Okay, so it's looking super messy right now, which is fine. That's kind of what I wanted. Okay, then I'm going to go back in here. Now watch what happens when I go create clipping mask. And now that's going to all go in here. Now if I want to change the opacity of it, I can. If I want to work with some of these blending modes, I can do that. But now I've got these interesting scattered brushes. Now with this layer, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in here into this layer and we're going to call it white layer. In fact, yeah, kind of the highlights. And so now I'm going to go into here and this part's super cool. So I'm going to click on this. So I select all my white area, right? So I've selected all of that. And now if I get rid of it, you see how you see everything still? So I don't want this white. So I'm going to go onto this layer and I'm going to press delete. Okay, so now watch what happens. When I deselect this, I'm going to have, let's see here, hold on a sec, I got to go back. So I've got that. There, I've got it selected, so I've deleted it from there. In fact, I didn't even need to delete it from there. I want to delete it from this layer. Okay, now I press delete, and now I've gotten rid of that white area. And so now I have that showing up. And so now I've got this picture, this image, and I've got these splatter brushes going around, so the image starts showing up very differently. So this is kind of what we're doing for this assignment. And so what I want you to do is, as you go through this, figure out like a color scheme that you might want to do. We're working with adding splatter brushes to your design, and then adding watercolors so you see all these different colors going through here, which are kind of fun. And then blend out of here as much as you can to create kind of a splatter effect so it doesn't look like it's just the regular picture. Now the next thing that you're going to end up doing for this assignment is adding a quote, right? And so when you add the quote, that's a whole nother aspect to this. So this is as far as I want to go for right now. And the next thing I'm going to add will be the quote. So follow the instructions as you go through this project. It's so important that you go through the steps. If you have questions, let me know or refer back to this as you're doing it. So good luck with this part. I'll do another video for the typography part.